Finding Langston, Chapter 5. I open the door. Why are you so late? Daddy asks, his words sharp enough to cut. I was out playing with some boys after school. Well, go wash up for supper, he says. His words are still sharp, but his eyes have a softness I haven't seen since he sat helpless as a baby by Mama's bedside. I keep my hands under the cold water spout. Why didn't I tell Daddy about the library? Why didn't I tell him about the boys at school and the way they poke fun every day? Why didn't I tell him how alone I feel in a city full of people? Same reason I don't tell him how much I miss Mama. Don't seem like Daddy can take any more than he already got. Before we left Alabama, I heard him talking to Grandma. Ain't nothing left for here. Ain't nothing left for me here, Ma. Leave the boy, Grandma said. Ain't no sense in dragging him along till you're settled. She wouldn't want that, Daddy grunted. You knew when Daddy was finished talking. I was hoping right up till we got on the train that Grandma would come with us, but saying goodbye to Alabama meant saying goodbye to everyone, even Grandma. After we buried Mama, Daddy started selling off what little we had. The bureau, Mama's trunk. Then he started packing. Most of my things I had to leave behind. Just take what you need, Daddy said. Grandma watched us go from the front porch. She squeezed me so tight, I thought she'd never let me go. All of a sudden, she looked old and tired. Not the grandma who worked from sunup till sundown. Mama's death had taken something from her, too. Grandma always said I had the best of my mama, and now I was leaving. Barely had a chance to talk to Jimmy and Roland. My Sunday pants rode up above my ankles while we walked the miles to the train depot. Mama never got to let them down before she passed. She said I must have grown 3 inches in 1 month, and she just couldn't keep up. Fast as she took out a hem, I grew some more. I stared hard at everything we passed so I could take a picture in my head to remember in case we ever came back to Alabama. I dragged my suitcase behind Daddy's long steps. Every time Daddy slowed to take out his handkerchief and wipe his forehead, I hoped he was going to turn around and head on home. But he just kept walking, and I just kept following. Folks stopped, asked if we wanted a ride, asked if we was heading out of town. Daddy answered, We're just fine now. Have a good day, and kept on walking. Time we reached the depot, our clothes were soaked through. Everyone always said I looked just like my daddy. Thick arms and middle, big flat feet, strong boy, handsome just like his daddy. Folks been saying since the day I was born, but I never took a liking to the work Daddy did in the fields, or chopping firewood, or toting heavy bundles. That day I must have looked like his shadow, trying to keep up behind his fast walking. The pebbles from the holes in the bottoms of my shoes pinched every step, but I didn't slow. Figured Daddy was so mad about Mama dying, he'd leave me behind too. Here now with Daddy, that seems like such a long time ago, but I'm glad I took the pictures of Alabama in my head. They're fading, like the pictures of Mama, but they're still with me. Daddy calls from down the hall, and I dry my hands on my pants and head in to supper. At school the next day, Miss Robbins is barely finished with our lesson when I start watching the clock. Fridays seem like the longest days, counting every minute till the school bell rings at the end of the day. The bell rings at 3, but at 2 minutes before, I slip my books quietly into my satchel. Bring! Okay, class, tomorrow, don't forget. I missed the last of what Miss Robbins is saying as I rush toward the door. Halfway down the hall, I hear, Wait for us, country boy. So I run faster, down the 2 flights of stairs, out to the back parking lot. I hide between the cars and squeeze through the hole in the fence. I don't slow down till I get to Michigan Avenue. The air feels cleaner here, still and fresh. I turn around, and there's nothing behind me but sidewalk. I cross the street and up the steps of the library. Chapter 6. The library looks different today. The smooth, polished floor feels cool through the holes in my shoes. and up above, where I thought I saw God, is actually a pretty ceiling that comes to a point like a hat. I walk in circles, staring up at the ceiling, and bump into a woman with books. "Excuse me, ma'am," I mumble as she cuts her eyes at me. The light comes from the tall, rounded windows behind the front desk where some women stand, dressed nice and stamping books and answering questions. I don't remember how to get to the room downstairs, the room I was in yesterday, with tables and shorter bookcases. I turn one way, then another. Finally, I walk over to the front desk. I wait, but nobody says anything, so I wait some more. "I see you found your way home and back again," I hear behind me. I turn. It's the lady from yesterday. "Would you like to look at more books?" she asks. I wish I could make my mouth do some talking, but I mumble, "Yes, ma'am." I look close as we pass by shelves of books and wooden tables and people sitting in chairs with round backs. We pass rows of pictures of colored people in frames like the ones in Miss Fulton's apartment, lined up nice on one straight line, each person smiling back, with a gold nameplate under their picture. "Who are they?" I point at the pictures on the wall. "They are several of the authors from our lecture series. Of course, Chicago is home to many esteemed Negro writers." She smiles. I nod like I know exactly what she's talking about. "I don't see a white person anywhere." "This is a library for colored folks," I whisper. She stops and the smile is gone from her face. "A library for colored folks?" "It's a library for Chicago residents," she says, serious. I don't know what residence means, but it sounds to me like it means it's a colored library. We keep on walking. "It is named for a colored man, however." She keeps walking. She has a way of talking, sounds like her lips are too tight for her face. "George Cleveland Hall was a local physician. He served on the board of directors as one of the Chicago Public Library's first Negro members." "So he built this here library?" I ask, nearly out of breath trying to keep up with her. Listen about Mr. Hall and look at the books at the same time. She stops short and I almost walk right into her back. "He didn't build the library." She looks serious again. "But it was because of his efforts to ensure this community had a library that this branch was built 15 years ago. It was named in his honor." I nod again, pretending I understand. History ain't one of my favorite subjects, but I ain't never learned any history about colored folks being physicians and directors. Downstairs, I see kids my age, some younger ones too, with their mothers, sitting at smaller tables, looking through books. When we get downstairs, she says, "My name is Mrs. Kimball. I'm the adult librarian, but Miss Cook at the desk will help you with your selections." Her voice is too crisp and clear. She makes every word sound special. Miss Cook is the children's librarian. Librarian selections. I don't know what any of those words mean, but I aim to find out. "Thank you, ma'am." "Mrs. Kimball," she says. "Thank you, Mrs. Kimball," I say, happy when she turns to go back upstairs. I go back to the shelf and back to the book with the words from my heart. I take it from the shelf, looking around to make sure it's okay. I sit one of the empty tables close to the window and open the book. I'm going to write me some music about daybreak in Alabama, and I'm going to put the purest songs in it, rising out of the ground like a swamp mist, and falling out of heaven like soft dew. I'm going to put some tall trees in it, and the scent of pine needles, and the smell of red clay after rain. I have to stop. I can feel the choking in my throat that always starts right before the tears. I look to make sure no one's watching, but everyone is looking at their own books. Miss Cook is at her desk, busy sorting through cards. I stand so fast I knock over my chair. Miss Cook looks up. "Would you like to check that out?" she asks. Check out. More words I'll need to learn. "Ma'am," I say. She waves me over. I stand in front of her desk, and she tells me I can borrow any book I want with a library card. But first she needs my name and address. "A place where you can borrow books," I remember Mama telling me. Before I give her my address, I ask, "Are you a librarian?" "Yes, I am," she answers with a smile. A librarian is someone who lets you borrow books in a library. One word down, I think. 4501 Wabash. She writes that down. And your name? Langston, I tell her.